Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junnikala, and today we're checking out Gethen, or Gethen, or Gethen. Pretty sure it's not about procuring chickens, but Gethen, let's go with that. By Silence+Other Sounds, also known as Silence+Other Sounds. I still don't know which one it is, but we'll go with that. What is this thing? Let's go to the website to learn more. So, this is subtitled Arpeggios in Motion. So at its core, it's about this Arpeggiator engine or system in it. There is a walkthrough video, which I'm sure is super good. I actually did watch parts of this because I promised Giuseppe from the company that I would educate myself on some of the details, but don't worry, I didn't watch any of the audio examples. I tried to avoid them as much as possible because, as you know, I like to go into these as blind as possible, but of course I do want to educate myself on the basic technical details so I can, give you a rather educated view on everything. But go check that out. It is very useful. Intro price shows to me in dollars as $79. So $79 intro price, and this is 33% off for a limited time. Now, importantly, full version of Kontakt 6.8 or above required. So again, free player is not supported. So no free player action, you need the full version. What is interesting and cool also is that you only need 6.8. So obviously the newest Kontakt version is 8 point something. So even if you have an older Kontakt version, it's gonna run this if it is 6.8 or above. So that's cool and nice. I know a lot of developers stick to the older versions because they work perfectly fine and they do what they're after and what they need. But that's an interesting detail to have a look at in case you do have a full version, but not the newest one. It says, built around a dual arpeggiator engine with over 1,100 handcrafted presets. So my job is going to be pretty difficult today based on that number. Gethen turns simple chord input into complex living arpeggiated textures. The kind of hypnotic evolving patterns you hear in the work of Glass Richter from Germany, or Fram, but entirely your own. Okay, this is interesting to actually reference some composers here. So that's actually very good and cool detail. I kind of wish more sample developers would tap into that because, again, there's no sample library that does everything. Sample libraries are very sound dependent. How you create it, how you put it together, that's what vision you have, that's the sound it's going to have. Not that everybody doesn't want to, obviously, reference individual composers or works of art or music, but from my perspective, it helps me understand what something is about. So that's cool. So yeah, again, custom dual line arpeggiator engine, making evolving phrases, rhythmic sequences, and aleatoric textures in real time. No pre-recorded loops. So basically it's taking samples, but then doing things in the engine with that. So that's cool. From delicate neoclassical string ostinatos to granular vocal choirs. Okay, so the vocal inclusion is very interesting. We'll have to see how that turns out. Percussive mellophones and synthetic pulses. Gethen transforms simple input into intricate layered movement. With over 150 sound sources, so again, these are different from the presets. There are 1,100 presets, but 150 a bit more sound sources. These include acoustic strings, voices, tuned percussion, and electronic textures. Nice. Gethen gives film composers and sound designers an immediate palette of kinetic, cinematic sound, plus drag and drop support for your own samples. Ka-ching. So yeah, this is a big thing. Obviously, a lot of people downright refuse to buy sample libraries if they don't allow your own samples, which I understand. But I mean, anytime that is included, regardless of the instrument, it just, exponentially increases the usability of a library. So very, very cool to have that. Again, they kind of go into the sounds here, which were sort of briefly already mentioned. Organic sources were recorded as multi-sampled instruments with chromatic mapping, round robins, and dynamic layers. Design sources were crafted using advanced spectral manipulation techniques in Kima, a sound design environment used extensively in Hollywood scoring and post-production. Many sounds blend both approaches, sitting in a space between realistic and the surreal. Familiar enough to feel cinematic, strange enough to feel new. Cool. So here you have more of a list of the sounds included. So categories, more specifically solo strings, so violin, cello, viola, woodwinds, vocals, metals, which include waterphone, friction mallets, crystal bachet. Let's go with that, because otherwise the other version I have of that word is not going to be very nice. And bells. Plucks, abstract mandolin, synths, and textures. And then these are in different articulation forms. So you have long sustains, you have shorts in spiccato, staccato, pizzicato. Again, these are contextual to each category of sounds. These are not available for all of them. So most of these seem to be long sustains or some form of short. Yeah, cool. This is very cool that they state how it's sampled as well. So multi-sampled, then they have the chromatically. Yeah, this is really cool. Actually, kind of like unexpected level of technical detail, but very appreciated. And also they have a quality categorization here. So organic and designed. So that's cool. That's kind of like the extra effort, which I think really more technically minded or obsessive OCD composers are gonna appreciate. So that's good. A bit about the engine. As they say again, at the core of Gethen are two independent arpeggiators. They have some of the basic stuff here, of course, tempo synced rates, note sequences, step patterns. But then you also have something called merge and slice steps, which we're going to have a look at. Mute and unmute divisions. This is the stuff I did check out from the walkthrough because it's quite essential and it's really cool stuff. What sets the engine apart is how it responds to what you feed. Load a sustained violin or a soprano vocal and it behaves as a rhythmic granular engine, carving movement out of the long tones. So again, let's go deeper into this once we jump into the interface, but this is a really cool, interesting aspect. And then, yeah, if you load like a short note thing, it switches to a dynamic sequencer, triggering precise rhythmic patterns. So what you feed into this thing is going to actually change how it behaves, which is, I can't think of any other occasion where I have, where that has been the case with an arpeggiator. The engine detects the sound type automatically. No configuration needed, so that's convenient. You can obviously layer them, and then, yeah. 1100 presets, your sounds, same engine, so that just touches on your own sample side. Importing your own samples here. We've got some audio examples, which I'm sure are sweet. Tech specs. This is downloaded through the Pulse downloader, which probably again remains the best downloader that I've probably used. It's just super fast and nice to use. Single user per purchase, I presume, and royalty-free license, so that's kind of necessary, but good to have mentioned here. Again, you need full Kontakt 6.8 or above, no player support, Kontakt player support. 8.8 gigs unzipped. So this is an interesting size because for a library like this, that's actually surprisingly big. Like, I could expect something like this to, you know, be smaller. Obviously this is not huge, but based on what I've seen so far, that's like at the higher end of what I would have expected. But again, very small footprint, so it doesn't eat up your hard drive. What's really cool, they also have these Arpeggiator templates. So this is a pretty like a genius inclusion, I would say, because it's like an additional aspect to, you obviously get presets, and in those presets there are arpeggiator settings as well. But you might be working with a sound and you don't obviously want to load a new preset. You just want to play with the arpeggiator. So this is a really cool way of giving you more tools to have more control over your sound. So I think this is actually a really, really clever inclusion and very much appreciated, because you might have the right sound and you might have almost the right thing going, but you want to play with the arpeggiator, make it do something different. So these are really cool for that. Also 187 impulse responses for creative sound design. Cool. Nice. Some credits here. Let's turn on my Italian here, which we all know is perfectly fluent. Alessandra Cognetta. I'm sorry, Alessandra, if I butchered that, but I can't do better than that. Female vocal source recordings, Rome-based singer and composer, has appeared in Guild Wars 2, Gladiator 2, and Star Wars Acolyte. Alessandra appears in our libraries from Omen, Nordic Folk, Strings, and Helen, which, by the way, are all very cool libraries, which we have. I think we checked out all of them. No, do I have a video on Omen? I don't know. I have Omen. I bought it back in whatever year that was. But the other two we definitely have demoed, so that's cool. And then Stella Manfredi. That's, again, sorry for the butchering. Violin and viola source recordings, classic and pop violinist based in Naples, Italy. In Naples. I don't know why I said that. Composer and session musician. Stella appears in our library. Stringace. Or is it string ache? I'm going to go with Stringace because I want to. That's why. Cool. Very nice. Again, if this is a new company to some of you, very strongly recommend checking out their stuff. Again, I love Omen. Super, super good. They also have a lot of these libraries like Maleventum Pompeii. I don't know why I can't turn off the Italian once it goes on. A lot of these kind of like sample libraries that are made for a specific era in time, and doing them very authentically to the instruments of that time, and really, really, really cool stuff. Again, yeah, they have the sound of the ancestors. So Nordic war horns, ritual voices, the drums of ancient Rome. So a lot of very cool specific stuff, and keeps it authentic and era accurate. Then you have some horror stuff. Helen we've checked out, very cool. So a lot of this kind of stuff. Again, probably my favorite is Omen. It's just a really, really, really badass vocal library for a lot of like gritty stuff. So go check them out. I do recommend it. Let's turn off Chrome here and take myself into the DAW. So let's have a look at this interface here. This is the main page. You can see from the bottom here, I can select these different pages. So this is where they are located. Main page, again, has just an interface for the 2 layers in Gethen. Again, here you can go to the tick boxes and select the source sample. You got level control for those, and then it has like a small picture for the samples underneath the selection boxes, and then you can also fine-tune things from here if you want. What the heck does this do? Ooh, okay, so these are, yes, okay, this is nice. Actually very cool inclusion. So different keyboard contact settings here. That's actually very, very useful. That comes from the keyboard small icon there below Gethen, the title, and then you have some macro controls here down below, and we'll come to that in a moment. So this is the kind of the main page, but in reality, you're probably gonna, let me just reset this thing just in case. The dual ARP page is probably where you'll be the most of the time, because this is where you adjust probably the most central aspect of this library. So again, blue and orange zones show you the 2 different layers. Also, the boxes down below here, blue is obviously ARP1 there, and ARP2 is the orange. Looking at the ARP step sequencer thing here, again, on the right, you see this bar where you have these 4 different controls. So the first one is draw step. So again, I can just, again, draw stuff here as I see fit. I can do whatever I want. I am the most powerful arpeggiator in the world. Then you also have a control for slicing, which is kind of funny that it appears before merging. But I guess it depends on the preset. I would probably expect merging to be before it. So basically merging allows me to merge steps into a single step. As you can see, we have this big blob here now. And if I wanted to slice it back into individual steps, I could do that by clicking at these different parts. So that's how that works. And then you also get mute steps, which you can select, and it kind of grays it out, which you can already see quite a few of these being grayed out. And that's what it does. Also, underneath every step, you have these little boxes here, which you might think have something to do with the step activation itself, but they don't. These have to do with step randomization. So on the left here, you see random amount. So you can, put it to max or do something more conservative. I'll actually read that to you, the definition from the manual, because it says it far better than I ever could. So each step has a small rectangular switch beneath it to enable per step randomization. When active, the sample offset is randomized around the steps value by an amount set with the random amount slider to the left. When off, the sample triggers from the exact position defined by the step height. So again, the step height here relates to, in this case, because we're dealing with long sustained notes, this height here actually doesn't reflect the level of the step in terms of velocity. It reflects the position of the playback of the sample. which is might be difficult to wrap your head around. But again, if I go into the selector here and let's choose a short sample here for the blue layer, when we go back to the ARP, this has disappeared. So now this only controls the velocity for each short note. But when we go back into a sustained note here, let's just do something randomly. You can see this has appeared again. So the steps adjust the position of playback of the source sample, as I understand it, and then you can further randomize it if you want. And hopefully you can see how cool this is, first of all, but also very powerful and very, very creativity inducing. And obviously there's a lot of random aspects here, but as I see it, when a tool is well designed, it just works creatively, beautifully. Cool. Let's have a look at the boxes below these step control areas. So again, on the left here you have arrows for different things, and as you can see from the top left where it says ARP1 sequence, these change the ARP positioning. So now the ARP goes up, now the ARP goes down, now it goes up and down, and here it's a note sequence that you can set. The small dial under those icons controls the note repeat control, which goes up to 8 times repeat. Here's the rate controller for the ARP. Cool. You control the step amount with this dial. So 32 is the max, which is kind of pretty standard for, you know, well-endowed arpeggiators. Then very nicely you have an attack control for the ARP, making it, you know, snappier or slower. You have a tail control, which the manual says governs a combination of decay and sustain, controlling how the step's volume behaves after the initial attack. You have next to these controls, you have the attack curve and then the step fade out. So these just basically, step fade out determines how long a step bleeds into the next, allowing for tighter separation or smooth overlap. And the attack curve, which is this one here, shapes the attack contour from steep to smooth. So pretty basic stuff. Then you have this scale steps control, which uniformly sets everything to the same place. So again, if I do something random here and I control the step scale here, it kind of brings everything in line. Cool. Very, very interesting design. I love it when I'm looking at a tool and it's already giving me a lot of creative curiosity. Like I can't necessarily even visualize in my head. I have an idea of what it could do, but you're like excited to get your hands on it to see how that vision comes alive or is challenged or changed based on what happens. But very, very cool design. Then you also have a modulations page here. You have a nice mod matrix here. So at the top you can see the controls for the macro 1, 2, 3, 4, and then also pitch layer 1 and 2, which we saw on the main page here. So again, here you can adjust these. There's an assign button, you press that, and then you can choose where you want to assign each layer, and then you can modulate those based on the settings here. Very simple, very cool. I love how clear and clean this is. It doesn't clutter my brain at all. It's very simple and straightforward. And also seems like there's a lot of room for just playing around, you know, throwing stuff at the wall and see what happens, and very easy to undo or do something again. So really liking this. And then you also have an effects page. So on the left here in the 6 slots here, we can reset these just to be sure that there are 6. These are like insert effects that you can throw in here, and then on the right in the black area you get your master effects which are compressor, delay, reverb. And on the top you have send controls for the delay and reverb per layer 1 and 2. So I'm loving this design so far. Again, just from a technical point of view of how it's put together and designed, it's very simple. I love the interface here as well. It is very clean, clear, simple to follow, and I can understand the technical and creative possibilities quite easily just by looking at this. I don't know what this pile of mysterious glowing rock or crystal or whatever this is in the middle is. It's slightly concerning and reminding me of something from a kind of Call of Cthulhu pen and paper campaign I was playing with my friends, and there was a very ominous black rock which was kind of spooky, but yeah, I don't know what that does there. Actually, we could also touch on the where the name comes from, Gethen. I'm guessing this has something to do with that. I'm not familiar with the story myself, but in the manual it says, inspired by Ursula K. Le Guin's novel, I'm sorry, Ursula, if I butchered your name, The Left Hand of Darkness. Coincidentally, that's what I call my left hand, so but they don't say any more than that in the manual. Let me go to AI. Oh, it's updating now. Well, that's a great time to. What does Gethen mean? Gethen means get chickens. No, I'm just kidding. Gethen is most widely known as the fictional planet in Ursula K. Le Guin's science fiction novel, The Left Hand of Darkness. Oh, year 1969. That's coincidental. In the novel, Gethen is also called... Okay, spoilers, I presume. I don't know if that planet is already a spoiler, but you've been warned. Gethen is also called Winter by outsiders, reflecting its harsh, perpetually cold climate. Let's keep it there. It gets kind of weird going from there on. Cool. So that's the interface overview. A bit longer than what we usually do, but I feel like it's really necessary with this. Yes, we're going to focus on the presets mainly here, but just to give you a fair understanding of what this thing is, I thought we would need to touch on that. So, what is the agenda today? As per usual, I just want to play as much of Gethen to you as I possibly can, so that you can hear what it sounds like coming straight out of the box, and whether it is something that is for you. Obviously, do remember that we're only mainly touching the presets, which is only one aspect of this instrument, but regardless, hopefully gives you a good enough idea of what this thing does. Do remember that you can bring your own samples in here, which will change the nature of this very much, I would imagine. But still, that's the plan for today. In terms of what you'll be hearing today, it's only Gethen in action. I don't add any effects on top of this of my own. No EQ, no reverb, no compression, no nothing. I have a limiter on my master bus to monitor the level for this video to make sure that it is as loud as possible, or rather consistent level-wise for you as possible. That being said, it is only there to control the output gain for this video, and in most cases, most of the time, we're not actually hitting the limiter at all. There might be some percussive peaks that might be protruding, and we might catch some of those. In most cases, I'll let you know about that if that is the case, but in most cases, it's just there to help me control the output level for this video, so that it's as enjoyable and listenable to you as possible. And all that being said, it's set to be as transparent as possible in case we do catch some peaks. In terms of transparency, Silence and Other Sounds did send me this copy, so thank you to them for doing so. Also, I am being compensated for my time that it takes to check out Gethen, do this playing, do the video editing. But all that being said, all opinions are my own, both in good and bad. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. Does that cover all of our bases here? I guess, again, touching on the blind demo aspect, I'm going in here pretty blind. I have skipped all audio examples that I could, but I did hear some sounds as a part of the walkthrough demonstration video when learning about this arpeggiator engine for myself. But other than that, this is as blind as I can possibly make it so that you'll get my authentic first impressions. In terms of how we'll do going through the presets here, when we open this menu here, let's actually go through the folder structure first. So you have an initialized patch which is very useful and sometimes difficult to find or locate with some libraries. Not here. I appreciate that it's right there and you can reset things fast. So you get 11 different folders. You get hybrid violin arpeggios, which further break down into straights and triplets, which is very much appreciated. Again, makes the usability of this a lot greater and speaks to a well-designed product. Then you also get a folder for textural strings, where you have grain and again straights and triplets. Then you have dark cello movements, again with straight and triplets. Evolved viola movements, again straights and triplets. Just presume everything is in straight and triplets from now on. Augmented Winds, and you also get a grain folder for that one. Vocal movements with also a grain folder. Metals with a grain folder, straight melodic, straight percussive, triplet melodic, triplet percussive folder. Plucks, synth movements with complex dark pulses, experimental synth arpeggios. Free form textures in forms named mostly as encounter and inspiration. And then you have, interestingly, a folder of selected presets. I think this is kind of cool. It's kind of like an all-star folder, I would presume. It's like maybe to highlight things here. I think for the sake of this video, what I think I want to do is go through the selected presets folder. Because again, these seem to pull material from all of the other folders and probably kind of condense things into highlights. Of course, this doesn't mean it's going to be everything that I would, pick from all these folders, but I think this will still be probably the best way to demonstrate this library. So I think we'll go through the selected presets folder, hopefully entirely. We'll have to see how intensive it is. And then if there's something left, something that I especially like, or if we have time, then we'll jump into the individual folders and try and pull something out that we didn't hear before. But most likely we'll be focusing on the selected presets. In terms of tweaking settings, I'll most likely focus mainly on the preset sounds. If there's something that I really like and want to tweak, then I'll jump in. But in most cases, we'll just keep looking for presets that speak to me and inspire me, and then I'll play a bit more of those. Before we jump into the presets themselves, the names actually have a lot of really useful information there. So obviously, first of all, STR means straight, and TRI means triplet. Fast BPM gives you an idea of what it's sort of most suited for. Obviously, this is only like a guideline, but it's still useful information to have as a reference. Then you obviously have the instrument itself. So here it's a violin ARP, and it says evolved. And then it has a note suggestion. So this is, again, kind of like the BPM, a suggestion of what you could be doing or not should be, because you can play whatever you want. But this is kind of a useful, it's information. It gives you a point of reference. And from there, obviously nothing's stopping you from going to a slow BPM or playing one note or two or three or whatever. But it is useful to know. In the manual, they say fast would be above 110 BPM, mid would be 85 to 110 BPM, and slow would be below 85 BPM. So these are kind of the reference ranges that they use there. Cool. So that's how that works. Let's jump into the selected presets folder, start with the hybrid violin, and just go in order. I have my tempo set to 130 BPM here, so let's see how that works out. Cool. So again, looking at the current on sound layer 2 violin design low. Okay, cool. So one improvement from the interface that I would like to see is when I go into this slot to see what sample there is, it does obviously state their current sound on layer 2 is violin, I guess that means designed low. I would love to see that visually here, selected immediately, like so that it's actually, it looks like a button here so that it would be pressed. Because then that could just bypass the fact that they need to state it in a sentence there. Obviously the information is there, which is the most important thing, but just like an interface improvement suggestion, that would just save me a lot of time to immediately see what I have. So I don't have to read that and then find where it is. Well, presumably you're in here to change sounds, but also sometimes you want to go in there to see what is actually loaded in there. If you like the sound, for example, and you want to use it somewhere else as well. But the reason I actually came in here was to make sure that it is a sustained sound. Layer 2, if we go to the dual ARP thing here, you don't actually see it here as well. You just see what the steps are doing here, but in the main page, and I actually wish this was also visually a bit bigger, but if we look at the top right corner below violin designed low, where you see the sample waveform, you see that the engine is kind of granulary. No, that's not how it works. It's been a long day, okay? Granularly, let's go with that. Scrolling or kind of scanning through the waveform. To have that like as a bigger window would be just cool. And also give me a better idea where the movement and scanning is falling onto, because when you work a lot with waveforms, you start to see kind of things that work or things that you want to try and kind of land on. So actually seeing the waveform a bit more would be very, very useful if there is like a portion that you want to kind of hone in on or focus on. So that would be super, super nice. But yeah, it's really cool to see it scan around there. Let's move on to the next preset. So this has a very interesting like rawness to it, and this is what I liked a lot in the Nordic. Is it the Tagelharpa library? It had that kind of like the rawness is very. It feels very human. Feels very vulnerable in a very nice way. And here I'm getting this like the same vibes. There's that sort of organic motion, and it's like almost like coming apart in a very nice way. But here I can't quite tell yet how much of it is coming from the engine, because I can definitely hear that, okay, the sample sound like quality, like the quality of the I don't mean like the quality of the recording in a fidelity sense, but the tone of it, the sound of it is kind of, raw and in motion, and kind of like, yeah, it's kind of sort of, I don't know, tearing itself apart in a certain way. No, like that's not a bad thing, but it has this interesting, I don't know, tearing quality to it. Has some kind of like organic fighting quality it's very difficult to put into words. And I can hear that some of it is definitely, a lot of it is in the samples themselves, but then it's also, you can also feel the engine. Yeah, there I like a lot. There's like that kind of like sort of stepping over itself at that one point, which is really, really cool sounding. That's very nice. Yeah, it's kind of sounded like it's like fighting for its life in a way. I don't know, I'm really struggling how to put this into words, but it's like the raw organicness, but it has this kind of fighting thing about it. Let's keep playing. Obviously, the range here is also quite limited. So you're working with a very kind of specific zone here. Obviously, we're looking at a violin, so you have to remember that for sure. Also, I think now it is. Yeah. Okay. So despite being in selected presets folder, it's not actually putting us through the folder as I'm scrolling with the arrows, because it's okay, yeah. So it's kind of like pulling from the folder database here. So I do have to manually select these. Otherwise, it's just going to keep scrolling this hybrid violin arpeggios folder. So, okay, that's good to know. Let's go to straight fast BPM violin up octave ARP 7. These names are quite something. But I actually love that they are just informative. That's nice. Has a very nice kind of glossy sound to it, but also sharp and piercing in a very, very good way. That's a very interesting tone. Okay, so mid BPM. Let's pull to like 100 here. I love how it's scrolling through that waveform there. It creates a very unique tone. This is interestingly sounds dominantly organic, and the fact that the source samples are really raw, and they have this fight in them. Meeting this engine with those sustained notes scrolling. This engine scrolling those sustained notes in this way creates kind of like the glossiness of it. Kind of creates a synthetic quality to it. So this would be probably really, really solid, and actually very unique for creating a sound for like a sci-fi world where you still want to have an orchestral string element. So this is actually very, very, very unique. I think this is, we still need to play more of this, but this is actually really feeling very genius as a as a concept, because what happens when that like almost like granular synthesis scanning thing is happening on the sample, it creates sort of certain motion that kind of sounds like it's being played in the samples themselves, but it doesn't quite, you can feel that it's not that. So it creates like a very, it sounds like it is being played that way, but you feel that it's not, It's like a synthetic perception of that. And I think this is like a really brilliant way of creating a synthetic feel for an organic instrument in a way that's not like cheesy or cheap or predictable. It's not like just adding a bit of synth with violins, but it's rather processing violins in a way that is synthetic, but trying to model like organic behavior, if that makes sense. Like this sounds insanely good. Yeah, beautiful. We get that like slight grit there from that sample to the right. They're punchy and they have that bit of gloss. This is a really, really cool sound. Again, here, a practical thing about, because previously I mentioned that I would like to see the waveforms bigger. Again, here would help me understand, first of all, what it's doing better. So I know, okay, that's coming from the sample, that's coming from the engine, but I could also, in case I wanted to adjust it with the dual ARP thing, I could see kind of which portions of the sample it's working on, and then I could kind of chase that a bit better. I'm also guessing that if I were to if I'm to write like a soundtrack with this, and I'm getting very deep into this ARP meeting, scrolling through the sample thing, I would want to have the ARPs on the same page also with this waveform bigger and seeing what it's doing, because I would want to be, I keep hitting this mic because I want to give you more clearance so you can see my keyboard here, but I'm not used to being so close to the mic, so I keep hitting it. Sorry about that. But if I'm in the ARP page and I'm making adjustments here with those sustained sounds, I would want to have also visual feedback of what it's doing and where it's scrolling on that waveform immediately. That would really help my workflow, I would suspect. Obviously, most of it is, we're musicians here, so it's sound-based. But when you look at waveforms for years, you can really tell a lot about them and find interesting bits about them. So really having that control in a bigger format and faster would be really, really nice. I think that would make this workflow, at least for me, a lot nicer, especially now that I'm like really, really getting into this. I really like the sound of this. It's really, really good. Also here in this one, I can hear very nicely the interplay between the layers here. And the interplay is actually creating a perception of a certain type of playing that's not actually happening, because the interplay of them is creating a perception of a certain type of a movement or technique that I can hear that they're not individually actually playing. And this has to be praised, because when a lot of companies are developing these libraries and putting them in these engines, layers often feel like a great feature inclusion. But it's kind of like when you think about creating a piece of music and mixing. It doesn't mean just because you have, more layers that it's automatically going to be better. Whether a track works depends on how the drums, let's take like a typical band context. what are the drums doing? How are they playing? What does it sound like? How does that pair with the bass and the guitar and the vocals and the keyboards and everything else? It's about the interplay. Like, innately, different engine designs can be interesting on paper, but whether they actually work, especially when you're dealing with, it's not like impressive just to have layers in an engine. But it's what you put in those layers that makes the difference. Like that, you can have there have been also cases about where the principle of an engine is interesting and good, but then in reality, the samples in there make it that they just don't meld together very nicely. They don't work with one another in an interesting, productive way. And it's actually really difficult to pair sounds together to make them sound good. That's why most music sounds like crap. It's very difficult, and especially when you're building a sample library. It kind of, the problem takes kind of a life of its own and goes to a different sort of a level. But here you can really hear the level of attention and detail that has been put in this process of pairing sounds together that have interesting interplays and create perceptions of something that's not happening there. This is really, really impressive. Hybrid ARP 3. So let's go over here. This says slow BPM. So let's do 70. Okay, so I see. So probably the rate here is clocked upwards, and that's why they tell you to lower the tempo, because if I put that to 130, it's gonna go very crazy. So yeah, that makes sense when you're dealing with a device that has a rate control. It's really interesting, the recommendations there in terms of the note number. Okay, fast BPM. Let's bump this back to 130. That is the limiter crapping. There are some level differences here depending on which preset you're playing and what you're playing. Yeah, it's really interesting. You kind of like to jump in here, listen to what it's doing. And there, for example, like the pattern didn't quite work with what I was doing at first. But then when you allow this D sharp here to kind of sing, has a beautiful, like you catch a point of reference here, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I could actually build stuff around there. So that's really cool. And it also, like these kind of approaches are like creatively inspiring. So I do very much like that. Evolved Violin. Yeah, that's what is a lot of fun with playing with ARPs, is varying obviously the note number, and like that works really well for a triplet. And obviously your inversions make a big difference. Yeah, that's very nice and jumpy. Cool. So that was the hybrid violin folder in selected. Let's go to Textural Strings. Yeah, you're definitely beginning to hear the glass and Richter vibes here for sure. It's really interesting how this is like the pitched vibe of that low end is very, very, very cool. Kind of glassy and round. Creates, again, one of those different vibes. Yeah, I'm doing it. I mean, that has got to be one of the most beautiful sounds that I've heard within a year. I mean, for sure. Like, it's so soft and puffy. I love that you can hear the the organicness of it. Yes, there's the hint of the violin that's actually listed there, but it actually gets this sort of almost like woodwind, puffy, airy quality to it. I don't know what this feedback pad is doing here. It's in textures, organic, and then, yeah, I'm just organic. I wonder what that actually is. But that's so like puffy, dreamy, instantly transports me into a beautiful, beautiful world. Wow, that was something different. Kind of the similar concept there. Nice. So this says mid BPM, so let's do 100. Yeah, you really do very quickly with this approach realize the importance of your chord inversions and how you set up everything. It just makes it complete an entire difference to what things sound like. Beautiful, like strange, organic, but otherworldly thing. Again, for example, here is like the first time that I would jump in there and take this into a different direction. I think that metal sound is very, very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into those. I would probably make the ARP sort of less, movement focused there. But of course, that is very subjective. Yeah, scrolling through these is pretty hard to keep track of where I'm going, especially with this naming system. Okay, slow BPM, so let's drop this down to 70. I actually really like the pad quality, the pad aspects that we've heard so far. So actually very, Very interested in hearing more of those. Very interesting. I love how it's really dancing right at the edge of tonality there, depending on where the moving thing is landing. Let's pull back the level here. This one seems to be louder. Yeah, I'm really digging all the pad type of things in here. They have a very... I love that sound. It's kind of, it is eerie. It's not something I would say is horror-like. I mean, you could take it there if you wanted to, but it's more like cold, otherworldly, a bit eerie, but also calming in a certain way. I mean, maybe that speaks to how messed up I am in the head, but they have this kind of like... What's the word that I'm looking for? It's not permeability. It's like, what do you call it when something is able to kind of transition between like materials? When you have two kids, this is how your brain works. Anyway, it has really interesting, like liquidy quality to it. Very cool. Also the low, down low shifting sounds. They have a really cool, it's not just like it doesn't give off like a vibe of, oh, it's just kind of pitched down. But it's sort of like round and not holographic, but it's, how should I call it? You can hear that it's kind of like has a semblance to its original sound in a very interesting way. All right, let's move to dark cello. We do have quite a few of these here. This one says fast BPM, so that's what we'll do. So far, definitely the scrolling aspect, because this creates something that I would probably describe more as kind of eerie and kind of like more horror leaning. What it does for the cello, it kind of like twists it into like no long kind of organic extension thing, but kind of like mutated form. So it kind of evokes a more, twisted vibe for me. Okay, yeah, this says mid BPM, so I'll drop that down a bit. Yeah, here they are specifically going for that kind of vocal type of thing. I'll start at 1. Yeah, that vocal morph sound isn't exactly to my liking, you know, specifically in terms of what type of stuff I like to do. So that kind of skews, obviously, my perspective there for sure. Let's go to this one. So this says mid BPM, so let's do So this I actually like. This is very cool because it's sort of more subtle, less kind of human leaning, but there's a nice motion here. Also, when you begin to introduce more notes, it's like this is like something is moving in the shadows. Obviously, we have this main momentum here, but it's kind of like something is shifting. And here it is. It seems more sort of integrated. The voiceness, human voiceness of the cello there. Yeah, actually there it has a really, really nice tone. Damn, I keep hitting this mic all the time. Slow BPM, let's drop back to 70. Yeah, these cellos definitely have like a gooey, dark tone to them. It's like a gooey thing, and it has like, there's an odd sense of pressure to them. I would definitely, for what I'm envisioning for that, I would need to jump in there and do more tweaking to make it fit what I'm sort of responding to here. But it definitely does have its own sound. Yeah, let's change the BPM again. Let's do 130. So these cello presets are definitely leaning into a direction where I would need to tweak more things under the hood, which is, I mean, that's what the instrument is for. Comparing to the violins, which kind of out of the gate, the presets do more of what I want. What I really like here is that it's really, they give me direction. You know, that's what you want from your presets effectively, to give you an idea. It doesn't need to be like, yes, this is the best thing in the world. Yeah, this is what I want to do. Obviously, that's the best case scenario. But equally valuable is to hear something and then know where you want to go. That's the whole point of making music. And what I like about these, even though they don't right off the bat as presets do what I want them to do compared to the violins so far, which pretty much did, they give me direction. They give me a sense of, oh yeah, this is what I want to do with them. And that's almost equally as important as having sounds that out of the gate immediately do what I'm after. Let's move on to the evolved viola folder. This will be very interesting because I don't know what the violas sound like yet, so let's go. Yeah, there, if I was to pursue that thing, I would probably need to adjust the delay and reverb thing here. This is a really cool thing. I really like how this kind of granular-ish scrolling of the sustain note things, it's creating this kind of glide and gliss and glue between the transitions when it's moving about. It seems to work really, really well for the violin and the viola. Here, again, the texture is different. It kind of like the same spirit, but it creates a very unique tone of its own. I really love the sound of that. It's actually quite surprising, like a lower viola tone there. Very, very snappy. That moves super nicely. Yeah, the motion there, the way it's like scrolling through it, it creates a very interesting, like the initial impulse is like, oh, it's like organic movement. But then when you actually kind of analyze it, it's not organic. It's kind of like this thing that's sort of trapped, a way of behaving that's sort of trapped between dimensions. That's another point where I'm gonna do the walk away. I mean, so one of the things I haven't even touched on at all yet is the playability here. It's really, it needs to be commended here, because I can easily imagine, and have in the past experienced, that instruments that are trying to do things like this, landing these notes, I can be even quite loose at where I'm putting my fingers and when, and it still reads beautifully musically what I'm doing here. And it's at no point are there any gaps that are like clunky or weird, or most importantly, like non-musical. We don't lose that sense of musicality at any point. That's really, really, really impressive here. Also, I want to, if I'm reading this right, is if we're looking at how this engine is scrolling through those samples. So on layer 2, where the viola spiccato is, it's kind of like really rapidly going through just the initial part of the sample. And it's also changing the I mean, it's just like, if I'm understanding that right, it's creating that sense of realism from obviously the sample, yes, but also how the engine is going at it. I'm going to turn off the blue layer, the first layer. Yeah, that's really impressive. This is something that I've thought about a lot. Obviously, I'm not a sample library developer. I'm not a Kontakt developer. I'm not, in that world. But I do think about these concepts every once in a while from a technical point of view. And I've been wondering, why is this not more used? Why is this not taking? Because it's like, if you can do the sampling side really well, and then you can also do the engine side in a way that sort of enhances the sampling or plays with it in interesting ways, or creates interpretations of those samples, or replays of those samples in a way that enhances or changes the realism or behavior of it in an interesting way. This seems to be like doing one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, why is this not a bigger thing in sampling? And again here, beautiful pairing of these two different samples. I want to listen to the layer 1. So here it's scrolling through different parts of that single sustain sample there. And again, beautifully kind of like being in the world between the realistic, the organic, and into this sort of synthetic thing. This is very nice. But how it comes together here when you play. Yeah, this is really cool. And with something like this, I can also easily see how I can obviously change the amount of number of notes that I'm using to play this, and I could influence obviously what the instrument is doing. But here it's like the interactivity and creative loop here is super, super tight. And you could create really cool, interesting patterns and motions by alternating that sort of rapidly between chord changes. That is very cool. Okay, so it says mid BPM. We've been using like a fast BPM here. So yeah, that really changes the character there. But for example, like that fast thing works really nicely, and it sounds super, super good and realistic there. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to play with the BPM ranges here. And again, here I'm probably intuiting. Let's try higher BPM. Yeah, there the scrolling of the layer 1 creates really interesting harmonics there. I thought it was coming from the delay at first, but then I couldn't hear any like delay there. So, but you can see that it's actually layer 1 doing it. Again, this is why the waveforms being bigger would be very nice. Yeah, it's a great tone that you get when that sustained note grain scanning thing begins. Yeah, I mean, even here, we have the engine scrolling through that sample, but it sounds like that could actually be playing. Obviously, there are a number of things we could do to kind of clarify or make it more realistic if we wanted to. I mean, realism here kind of depends on the context and everything else that's going on, but that's really cool that the engine is doing a lot of that. Let me turn off the orange layer. So yeah, obviously on its own, that doesn't sound like it is the viola. But in the context of these more separated, realistic upfront spiccatos, it becomes like a movement there in between. And obviously there are a number of things we could do with that, but very, very cool. Moving into Augmented Winds. pulling down the limiter there. Beautiful, just perfect. Super nice, very impactful distortion there, no overdone, no underdone. Beautiful, like, you know, like throwing gravel on something. And yeah, I love those woodwinds there, kind of scanning back and forth. I have to praise that analog brass sound. That is so smooth, puffy. It succeeds in giving like that perfect like warmth, but it doesn't get like annoyingly thick or nasally or anything like that. That's a really, really nice sound. Beautiful. Yeah, again, a very nice thing is happening here, just like with the violins and the violas. Like this really, the higher woodwinds really seem to take well to the to this scanning, scrolling, scrubbing thing. It's beautiful, like, again, glossy, gluey texture. beautiful tone. I also want to praise those that reverb and delay there. That's very, very tastefully done. Yeah, again, the motion of shifting through the sample creates that syntheticness, and then the effects take them really, really nice. Again, I just want to praise the playability here, because I've played a lot of things that couldn't really keep up with like an engine behavior like this and still remain so playable. Like, I can move any way I want, do anything I want, and it doesn't like jumble up what it's doing. It can interpret my intentions really, really, really well and musically at all given times, which, you know, is not a given for sure. It's actually really cool pairing of a clarinet with a pan flute. I've never even thought about that, but it kind of like, you get that soft, airy puffiness and then the kind of the sharp edge of it. That's really cool. And I love when instruments can teach me things about music and not just be a, you know, a bunch of sounds, but actually make me think creatively. Yeah, let's drop the BPM here. I just love how a lot of those scrolling things, they kind of throw themselves, the synthetic quality of them, into the reverb there. It's really, really, really well done. I mean, that's stunningly beautiful. I love that tone. It kind of reminds me of the vibe of some of the kind of Jim Guthrie stuff, the indie, you know, video game music composer. I think he might like this. But yeah, I mean, just like a very dreamy, otherworldly, but soft tone. Very cool. I like that. Wow. Okay, yeah, I'm doing it. It's another walk away. I mean, that's so good. I gotta take a drink. Jeez. This thing really holds some real gems in here. Just like sound design heaven. So, okay, again, cool. Clarinet paired with a trumpet. So apparently trumpet breath. I'm guessing that creates the bass thing there. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Like, that's perfect. Let's pull back the level a bit here. I mean, that previous one just like took me away. Again, I was like composing music there. Forgot about the video. It's just, there's no higher praise than that. And when a library does that, for me, it's, you know, the highest praise I can give. Okay, I'm doing it again. Jeez. Wow. I mean, those woodwinds, this category is insane. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, like here when we do that dissonance between the D sharp and E. Hear that slight gliss going through it, which creates a beautiful like torn tone there, and it throws it into that reverb. Oh my god, that's so good. Yeah, I mean, it's like perfect. We get those like woodwind artifacts and raspiness. It all just blends together so well. I mean, this has no business being this good. That is absurd. Yeah, I mean, for what I'm envisioning there, I would jump in the ARP thing and do something a bit different. But wow, the tone here, again, how well like, I love that both of these have a bit of like that raspiness and those artifacts, the byproducts of so-called byproducts, the beautiful parts of what the instruments produce. But clarinet, viola, really, really cool pairing with those textures. It's really, that has such a good sound. Again, it's a slow BPM, so let's drop this down. Cool. Yeah, I mean, woodwinds. Very, very cool. Okay, we're going into vocal movements. I have no idea where this is going. I mean, this could go in any direction. I feel like having vocals in here is so wild. Just knowing the concept here and the engine, I'm like, I really don't know what to expect, but I guess there's only one way to find out. Okay, so that's kind of shifting around in pitch, obviously putting us in a more anxious state. So I realized about halfway through playing that, I was like, why am I surprised? Because they created Omen. They created so many like really cool vocal things. I mean, that just works really well. I was kind of like, with these kind of things, you quite commonly want to keep the vocals pretty sparse. You don't want to get super thick. So I was, even with like 3-part harmony, kind of pushing it, but it helps. It held together so well. Like it's remarkable how it is like it's a shifting sample, like performance itself, and then the engine is also shifting, but you can actually, keep the tonality intact very nicely. Obviously, there's a lot of things, a lot of directions you could be taking that, but that is very impressive. I love the texture, the samples themselves, the voices, all the details, and again, the playability here needs to be praised, because it's not at all a given. And especially when you're moving around like that, especially with vocal samples, it begins to show the limitations. Like typically if you do that, it would show the limitations of the engine. But here with this one, it's just like, yeah, bring it on. I don't care what you do. I don't know why I did that. No, that wasn't me. That was the library. Yeah, very, very cool. Obviously, you would need to really figure out the part that you're writing for there. But very impressive how it can actually, the sound stays operatic, but it still plays ball with this system and this approach. Again, we need to figure out a proper musical context there, because I was just kind of like roaming around, but very, very nicely done. Yeah, this kind of vocal stuff that moves like between the boundaries of tonality is really cool. You're just gonna figure out the right place and time for it. But this sounds really, really good. It doesn't like, it's just so clear, clean, very, very nicely polished. That is the limiter clipping there. This is beginning to sound like one of those like Matrix entering sounds, like the digital stretching, which I actually love. That was the limiter clipping, by the way. Yeah, I really love the digital stretching there. Very, very cool. Beautiful. I love the top end vocal where it kind of like sort of like puff leaks into existence. Beautiful vocal tone. I love that. was the limiter again? Yeah, these are really cool. It's kind of difficult to demonstrate that without like good context for that, but very cool. I love these kind of like rhythmic vocal things that really groove as well as these do. Amazing. Yeah, very cool rhythm pad sort of hybrid. Super good. Yeah, so that seems to be really locked in with one note. Cool. Mysterious chant. Let's pull back the limiter. We are clipping that. I really like the sound of this. Yeah, it's really interesting hybrid things happening because you have the organic layer, then you have kind of the shifting deck of the instrument, but then also the pitch shifting up when we go higher. It's a really cool blend of things. Cool, let's do one more from this. Let's do Pulse 14. loving that tone, loving the pattern as well. Simple, but moves very nicely. Cool. Let's go into metals next. This is going to be again, I have no idea what to expect here, but based on the one metal thing we heard earlier, this should be quite interesting. Very beautiful texture and sound. Kind of interesting. You can actually harmonize with that, which is really cool. Yeah, that's actually impressive. You can play it that well. Actually, very, very nice sound. That's a very difficult type of instrument or sound to create. That because it can get so harsh so easily. That's actually very nice to listen to. Okay, these bowed waterphones I'm very interested in. That is, well, actually Kontakt clipping. I like those tiny fluctuations. It helps a lot when it's actually scanning through the sample. Eerie Glockenspiel. Beautiful sound. It's remarkable because they kept kind of the low thump there, but they made it very full and warm sounding, which creates like this like warm, full picture. But then all like on the top end also, it's very effortless and airy. Like none of this is harsh on the ear, which can easily be the case with a Glockenspiel. So this is fantastic sounding. Very beautiful. Same thing here. Again, keeping that tapping percussive transient thing there at the bottom really kind of creates that warmth. It's so like airy and sparkly in the smoothest possible way. Really, really impressively done. Yeah, I was waiting for these bowed ones because they sound really good for this format. I like the softness of this and the slight grit. I'm hoping there are some samples there that kind of bring more of the raspy side of that. Okay, actually the percussive things work really well for this concept. I don't know how much there are, but that actually seems to be working really well. Cool. That's the metals going into Plucks. Okay, this intuitively sounds like a great idea, but let's play. Let's raise the level here because it is quiet. Yeah, very cool. Love the tone. Works beautifully, even in a very simple ARP configuration. Yeah, it's just, again, obviously a very simple ARP there, but how it has that kind of rawness, authenticity to it. The textures are super, super rich. This just feels like a very soulful thing. Like, I immediately went into writing music mode instead of, oh, that's a nice mandolin. I love the layers here. Let me listen to the second layer on its own. Yeah, that makes so much happen. Yeah, I gotta also praise those effects. They're just put in a very, like a dreamy, expanding way. But yeah, I mean, how those layers layer together. Creates kind of like a blippy bloppy, almost not like a Celesta or like a electric piano, or hey, I don't know, like maybe a Celesta is the closest thing. This kind of like bell or reed type of like a beautiful, soft, plucky thing there in the background. That is absurdly good. Yeah, one of the best. One of those lo-fi things, liking that. Obviously you gotta fit it into what you're doing in the right way. Yeah, these also have a very nice anticipatory feeling to them, like stuff is happening, stuff is moving. Very, very nice tone. Yeah, I'm gonna have to select here due to time limitations so that this isn't a million hours long. Beautiful ambience there. I wonder if that's a impulse response there. Very cool. Synth movement. We'll do a few from here. Absolutely brilliant. There's something that popped back into my head, because when these kind of you expect these to be kind of additional things in these libraries, and then you go in there and they're just insanely good quality. I just remember that this has happened before with me when it comes to Silence and Other sounds libraries. It just, yeah, that sounds brilliant. That's insanely good. All the like, wow. Yeah, the percussive like noise element, beautiful. That grit, that distortion there on top. These are like stupid good. And again, that it's here, like I wouldn't at all expect it, but these are like just insanely good. Yeah, you get the idea. Really, really cool. Obviously, you have the 2-layer control there, so there's more control than I initially thought. But wow. Yeah, these are really, really good, even on their own. Like, obviously, this is different from the organic material in here, but first of all, it's in the same world, complements them superbly well. These are really good, these synths. And I'm super happy that there's, obviously, we're looking at only at the highlights folder, but there's a lot of stuff in here. Those are really good. And then let's do, lastly, free form textures. So let's do a few of these. That slight clipping was the limiter. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that these are harmonizable. That's really cool. I love that spoken layer. Obviously, that's scary as hell and creepy and all that, but sounds amazing. Spoopy. Cool. All right, cool. I think that's it. I know in the beginning we said we might jump into these folders further specifically, but I mean, this is already, how long has this thing been? Very long. So unfortunately, we don't have the time for that, nor do I think probably anyone on the other side of that camera has the time for that. I'm not sure how colossal this demo is. Or this video is already, but yeah, time to summarize this. I mean, first of all, wow, I mean, it ended up being, I mean, simultaneously, like, going in here, I was like, I don't know what to expect. I mean, Silence+Other Sounds is one of those companies where you know the style and the vibe you're getting, but you just never really know specifically like how it's gonna turn out. Like, they are one of those companies where they're doing their own thing. They're like completely in their own space. The libraries always have their own vibe and their own style and their own angle. There's always something raw and organic and human about it, and then something weird about it in the best possible way. So, I mean, across this video, we had a lot of like S-tier moments. Like, a lot of these presets were just out of the gate, just absolutely stunning sounding, and, you know, perfect for the style of stuff that I want to do. So, I mean, anytime there are presets or sounds in a library that just go straight into S tier, that's already a great achievement. And like I've said many times before, if I just lose myself and forget I'm making a video and I just start composing music, then that's really the highest praise I can give a library, because that's the whole point of getting this stuff, you know, to write music and to create. And that happened several times throughout this video. Also, one of the things to point out is that we barely scratched the surface here. We went only through, I would say, most of the selected presets, so most of the highlights here. And as you can see, when we go into these individual folders, there's a lot more stuff in here. I really love, when it came to the strings, I really love the violins and the violas. When it comes to the sustained notes being processed through this engine, it creates a very interesting, like, glue, gliding, glissing type of a sound, which is probably like equal lengths away from the synthetic and the organic world. Like, this is one of those sounds that is genuinely somewhere in between. And I said this before in the video, but I think this library is exceptionally well suited for creating, if you're doing like, what came to mind for me, was sci-fi. So if I was doing like a space thing and I wanted it to be orchestral or organic instrument using, but I wanted to have it, I wanted it to have like a synthetic feel to it, but I didn't want to go full like synthesis use, synthesizers, then this would be right at the top of the list of things to use to create that kind of a sound. I love how the engine kind of glides between different sections of the sample, and yeah, like granular. I mean, I think that in the manual they said it's granular like, but I don't know if they said it's granular. It might be, specifically, I don't know what it's doing there. And granular is nothing new, but here it's done in a way that is it's moving through the sample in a very sort of unique way. I don't think I've specifically just like this thing heard ever before. It's interestingly like sort of fusing and like teleporting between those shifts. It's really, really well done. I think it works exceptionally well in the violins and the violas. I was less of a fan of the cello thing. it has a very unique sound for sure, and I would use it for like kind of like oddly disorienting or slightly disturbing things. A lot of the cello things were sort of emulating like a human voice thing, so that's probably where that connotation comes from, although I'm sure it's only one aspect of what the cello does here. But I think this engine and this system lends itself the best to my taste when it comes to those higher pitched instruments. I will though say that some of the towards the lower end pitching sounds, they create very interesting sort of like almost like a shadow of the original instrument, which is a really interesting tone. I would personally need to work more with it to make it do what I'm after, but that's just subjective, a subjective assessment. Yeah, same thing for the winds blew me away. That's where a lot of like those S tier presets were in. But I mean, they are right down my alley in terms of what I would like to do with like a woodwind meeting, again, slightly synthetic sound. But I mean, to my taste, they do it so well. And again, the higher pitched stuff is the best. Also, there's some really unique, cool pairings of instruments here that I actually like, the pan flute and the clarinet. Like I would never even, well, I never say never, but haven't thought of that before. And I actually learned a lot about certain pairings here. And then we had like a trumpet thing with, was it like a flute? Very interesting sounds here, and I just happen to love them. A lot of them kind of leaned into this kind of pad type of thing, and then we had like those puffy movements, and then kind of these reverb delay throws into the distance. Just like absolutely beautiful, stunning stuff. Most of the vocal things that we bumped into were mostly leaning into kind of the unstable, slightly disorienting, kind of twitchy and micro shifting type of stuff. And then you did have a lot of the operatic stuff in there as well. So it is kind of, perhaps some of it leans to like maybe mild horror or anticipation building, but then a lot of it is like a lot of this kind of rhythmic, cool, twitchy, shifting, light female vocal stuff, which I also like a lot. I would definitely want to dive more into the medals specifically, because I felt like the ones we went through, the selected presets here, I really want to have a broader look before making broader statements about it. But I was impressed by how a lot of these remain tonal. Like you can actually play a lot of these. I did like a lot when they went more percussive here. I think that works really well with this engine. So presumably there's more percussive sounds. Oh yeah, okay, so here we go. Go into medals, and then you have percussive folders here as well. So that's probably something I would want to have a look at more if we had more time and I didn't have half a brain to use. But percussive things seem to really work well here. So if you're bringing in your own samples, do test it, because it seems to work really, really well. Also, a lot of the the texture tones from like the waterphone and stuff like that, definitely want to dive in here to play more with that. And yeah, I mean the let's find it here. Actually, the Glockenspiel, 10 out of 10, and also the Gethenian toy box. But things like that are just so they've kept a lot of the low end kind of thump there and balanced it beautifully, so it feels super warm. And the top end is like sparkly open and effortless, because a lot of the time the glockenspiels and these kind of things are just, they become too tiring to the ear, and you're like, I can't do that. But this one is just like, it's a pleasure to listen to. So great work on that. The plucks here, I love the mandolins. Even with this very simple ARP patterns, these are extremely wonderful sounding. The textures, the presence, again, they have like this kind of anticipatory sound to them, like something's coming, something's moving, not in like a horror way, but sort of like things are in motion. I absolutely love the tone there. So yeah, stunning stuff on there. The synths have no business sounding that good, but they are insanely well produced. I mean, we only played a few and pretty much all of them were stellar sounding. So this is kind of like one of those sleeper things in Silence and Other sounds libraries. They are just really, really well put together. All the distortion, all the, the production there is insanely good. So that's also something I'm looking forward to checking out more here, because there's a lot more synth stuff in here. And these freeform textures, we had a kind of like a very, very shallow look at them, but I can imagine these can be super useful when layering for pad things. So one thing before I forget, I do want to again touch on the playability. This is insanely playable. It just keeps up with you in the most musical, brilliant way. Like even when I'm a bit like fumbling with my time, it kind of figures it out and outputs something super, super nice. With this kind of engine technical approach, my experience has been that some libraries just can't keep up with variation. It doesn't live in a sort of organic, responsive way, and so you have to be super precise with what you do. But with this library, no issue at all. This plays fantastically throughout, and it's actually like helping you do a good job. I don't know how it maps all of this, but it plays superbly well. Also, one of the things I do want to point out is that there is a crap ton of more content here. Again, I want to emphasize we only went through the highlights here, or the selected presets as they call it, which is, I don't know what percentage this is, but looking at this thing really quickly, it doesn't seem like even close to half. I don't think. And I think they said a bit over 150 sound sources for this. It's truly impressive, because comparing 150 plus sound sources to 1100 presets is obviously like a 10 times difference. And you would think, some things would become repetitive, and maybe, some of them do, because we didn't go through all of those. But it's remarkable what they can pull out of those and build so many good presets, and at least within the selected presets, there was like some what I would describe as like preset overlap in some of the strings. Yeah, mainly the strings we went through. But again, this can be a strength, because as I've said many times before, sometimes you just want to have kind of the same thing but a different perspective on it. So it's actually useful to have similar things, as long as they give a unique, different perspective on things. Again, I can't make a statement about that here, because we can't possibly go through all of these things. I did, find some overlap there that I would probably describe as maybe not super necessary, but that again depends on what you're doing. And again, I want to emphasize that with a library like this, especially with the presets that go for a more clearly arpeggiated sound, you really do need to be on top of your chord inversions and understand what makes things sound good and bad, because you being a bad composer will easily make music sound bad. That's no surprise. But with a library like this, you really want to be mindful of your, first of all, like your harmonization, but how you do your inversions and how you set up your chords. So that's really worth thinking about. But again, simply going through a highlight preset folder, which again, I haven't done the numbers here, but seems to be a clear minority of all the presets that are in here. Still, I know it's a highlight folder, but still that being this good and having so many like diamonds in there is kind of a statement, or usually it reflects the overall quality of the library. So yeah, super impressed by this. Yeah, I mean, they continue to be one of those really cool developers who are doing their own thing, and it always has its own soul and character. So yeah, this was a pleasure to check out. But this is already out now, so I'm sure some of you already have this. So let me know what your experiences with Gethen, or Gethen, I don't know how to pronounce that even still, but let me know what that has been. And as always, certainly let me know what you think of this video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.